Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kristen, and if you're new, I hope you like what you see and decide to stick around by hitting that subscribe button. I upload videos every Monday, Thursday, and vlogs on Saturday, except for this week. I had a vlog up on Tuesday because sometimes I forget to upload and things go up the day after. It happens. But I do try to make sure at least I get 3 videos up a week. So today I'm going to be telling you guys why I quit grooming animals and pets, why I no longer work in the grooming field, grooming salons, and just my overall experience of being a pet groomer. I say pet groomer because I've done dogs and cats. I didn't just do dogs. So why I don't groom anymore. So I should specify that I do still technically groom. I have a few select clients that come to my house. I have a small space set up in my basement for grooming with my table and my equipment. I have 5 or 6 dogs that come on a regular basis that were clients that I had from when I worked at the grooming salon. But I don't work in a grooming salon anymore. I haven't worked in one for probably close to 2 years. And I don't know that I ever would want to work in one again. So here's why. So how I got into dog grooming. How old was I? 24 maybe? The job I'd had for several years in marketing, it was starting to go downhill. I loved that job, but my animals are playing. Sorry, I'm sure you can hear them running. My dog and my cat are chasing each other. Anyway, the job I had in marketing, it was a good job, but every couple of years it had big overhaul changes. The overturn for management was very high, and we were about to get a new manager, 2 different new managers. Our district was fired and our store manager was transferring, and the hours got cut. It was just, I was hardly working. We were making it on one income, my husband and I was just kind of sick of the changes they were making and how everything was going. So I talked to my husband and I was like, I've always been interested in dog grooming, and I met somebody, I went to high school with her. I didn't know her super well, but I ended up working with her at my old job for a little bit, and her mom owned a grooming salon and was a groomer. And so I told my husband, I was like, what do you think about me seeing if I can get a grooming apprenticeship with this lady, because I'm not making any money now, we're making it on one income. What's your thoughts on me seeing if I can get an apprenticeship? Because I don't have a college degree. I did go to college for a little while. College was not for me. I could do a whole other video on that. College is not for everybody. If you're having doubts about college, maybe look into going to a tech school. That would be my advice. But I'd always had an interest in pet grooming. Growing up, I had a Bichon Frise. They require a lot of grooming, not just regular grooming, but like at-home grooming. They have to be constantly brushed and bathed to keep them looking white, otherwise they get dingy, and their coats get matted. So growing up, I had to brush him a lot, and I had to bathe him a lot, and there was a few times when my parents had hard times financially, and I remember my dad going out and buying a cheap grooming kit from Walmart. You can get them for like 20 bucks. I'll leave a link to them down below if you're interested, because it is what I started grooming with. It's not ideal, but for someone who's just going to groom at home, especially if you're just doing shave downs, it's going to serve your purpose pretty well. But that's one of the things that he bought. I think it's with the wall clippers. Sorry, I'm getting off on like equipment here. So I remember, my dad tried to shave our dog and tried to make him look like a lion or something. I don't know. It was like an outrageous cut, but they didn't have the money to be taking him to the grooming salon. And I believe with the groomers that they took him to, they were paying $35 to $40 a visit, and that's every 8 weeks if you take them regularly. And with a Bichon Frise, you kind of need to. You can push it during some months, but during the summer, your dog can get overheated because of how thick and fluffy their coats are, and it's, it has to be regular maintenance. So I eventually started trying to groom him. I think I was around, 15 maybe when I first started trying to groom him. I can't say I was any good at it, but I really enjoyed doing it. So it was something that I'd always kind of had an interest in. And I did spend some time looking up grooming schools. There's one like 2 hours away from me. but they wanted like $5,000. There's actually two, if I remember right. There's two. There's one that's a little bit closer, it's like an hour, and they want about $5,000. And there's another one that's 2 hours away that also wanted $5,000, but I think they did financial aid. There's three close, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm sorry, it's been a few years. There's three near me. Two, they all wanted about $5,000. Two of them I don't think did any kind of financial aid. One of them let you start making payments after you graduated, and that was the one that was the furthest away from me. The one that was the closest to me and literally down the street, I looked up some reviews and I talked to a few people who went there, and they said literally like they just had you sit in front of a TV screen, and like they didn't really give you very much one-on-one training, and the girl who went to them for training was very disappointed. So I didn't want to spend my money on that. Obviously it sounded like a really bad school. So I ended up contacting the mother of this girl that I'd gone to high school with and asking her if she would be interested in taking me on as an apprentice. And she said that she would. And so I put in my 2 weeks notice at my job and I quit, and I started an apprenticeship at a grooming salon. Before I quit my job and all that stuff, I did, I don't know, it was like 2 weeks of shadowing. She wanted me just to kind of a feel for what was going to be going on and see if it was something I'd even be interested in, which of course it was. I loved the idea of it. And like I said, I ended up quitting my job and I got started. The way she had it set up for me was pretty much I was getting paid under the table, meaning no taxes are being taken out. And my price as an apprentice was half the price of a regular groom. Her average grooms were about $35. Bigger dogs cost more money. Smaller dogs might cost a little bit less, maybe. But about $35 I'd say was the average. So my payout on that was half. So I would make about $12 to $17 per groom. That was about my average. I just realized my baby gate's still up here. I forgot to put it up. So hope that's not bugging anybody. But I made about $12 to $17 per groom, and I got to keep my tips. That's what it was. Sorry, having a brain fart. I was able to keep all of my tips. And a lot of times I kind of look like a stripper because I would come home and I would have just like a wad of cash. I mean, I guess you could also say a waitress, but I did do waitressing in high school and I did not make near as much money as I did working as a dog groomer. And oh my gosh, the tips people give you as a dog groomer, holy cow. For one, I didn't know you were supposed to tip your dog groomers until I became one. For number two, if you treat their dog good and they like the way they look when they're done, they might, you know, they might have to pay $35 for a groom, but they may also give you a $20 tip. Like, there's some money to be made in dog grooming. My manager told me that she averaged about $35,000 a year before tips. And she told me not to claim tips on taxes. Now, this lady there were some things that she did in her shop that I don't know that I would necessarily agree with. But I can see where you can easily get away with not claiming your tips. I mean, it's cash handed to you. You know, it's pretty easy not to claim it on taxes. I'm not saying you should do that. I just can see where it's easy to do that. So everything's going great. I'm coming towards the end of my apprenticeship. I'm loving the job. I'm, loving all of the clients. I'm starting to build my own client base. I'm starting to have repeat clients, and that's when my boss is telling me, she's like, that's when you know you're doing good, is that they really like you enough to start bringing their dog to you on a regular basis. And I loved it. I worked it full time. It was 4 hours a day, about a 12-hour shift, something like that. And I loved it. It was something I was so passionate about. I was so happy to go to work every day. It was great. And then we got down towards the end of my apprenticeship, and she started talking about numbers, talking about the way she wanted her shop to be ran, A, B, C, and D, how she wanted things to go. And so right before I started my apprenticeship, there was this other girl working for her, and she just up and quit. Like, up and quit. Like, I was in the middle of doing my shadowing, and one day she was there, and the next day she didn't show up. She just quit. And that really upset my boss. And so that was kind of a sore spot for her from the get-go, because she had also taken this girl on as an apprentice. She'd done several apprentices, but none of them ever stuck with her. And there's a reason for that. So she starts talking finances towards the end of my apprenticeship. She lets it slip that she's like $12,000 on back taxes for her company. And I'm going to try to remember everything the best that I can without having to break out the calculator, but it's been like 2 years, so I might not remember everything exactly. You can math check me in the bottom if you want to. But she wanted to set it up to where I would, what is the word? I want to see freelance, but I'm not sure that that's the right term. Pretty much, I wouldn't be her employee, and I would be renting booth space. And she wanted to set it up to, which meant that I would have no insurance coverage over me. So if I got bit or attacked by a dog, it would be on me. So I would have to go get business insurance for myself. And then she wanted to charge me booth rent, and she wanted to charge me rent for a table. Oh man, I can't remember how much she was wanting to charge me, but it came out to being like a big chunk of change that she wanted to charge me. And when I was doing my my shadowing with her was like February, and it was cold, it was nasty out. A lot of your clients are elderly people, and they were canceling left and right. I remember a few times coming in to shadow, and they might have 2 dogs for the entire shop, for the entire day. And on months like that, like that's one of those jobs where it definitely has slow seasons, and you have to be good at money management and have money in your bank account saved back for when things just get that slow, because there's no guarantee you're always going to have dogs to groom. So I kept thinking back to that, and the money she was wanting me to pay out, she based it off of me making like, I don't remember, like $800 a week, something like that is what she was estimating me making, and she wanted me to pay like $300 something a week for booth rent, which when it's busy, that's fine. Like I was bringing in pretty good money. Of course, I was only making half of that, and she was taking the other half because I was an apprentice, but like I was bringing in pretty good money for her, and I had steady minimum of 6 dogs a day, sometimes more. So I was doing fairly good. And of course, remember that the price can fluctuate based on the size of the dog. The bigger the dog, the more you get paid. And that's not including everybody who just walked in for nail trims, just walked in for a bath and a blow dry. You have all of those side dogs that come in as well. So it racks up. But for like total full-on grooms, I have average 6+ dogs a day. And like I said, she wanted like $300+ a week in booth rent. And that wouldn't be horrible, except for I kept remembering, like, what about the slow season? And I only seen it for February. How was it in January? And it just, financially, it sounded like a big risk. To further that, she also wanted me to sign in my contract that stated that I would stay working with her for 5 years. And if I quit during that time frame, I would owe her $1,000 to quit. There was nothing stipulated in the contract that said if I quit a day before the end of my contract that I wouldn't owe the money. There was, so like I could work up till a day before the end of my contract and quit, and she would still charge me $1,000 for quitting. There's just all kinds of crappy things in her contract. And if you remember, I brought up the fact that she was like $12,000 in back taxes, and I remember doing the math for how much she wanted in booth rent, and it came out to, if I worked for her for a year, it would pretty much pay off all of her back taxes. So from her standpoint, I can understand why she was trying to set it up like that, but it was really gonna screw me over, to be honest. And she knew that my husband and I were talking about moving to Lafayette at the time, which is about an hour and a half away from us. I live in Indiana, for anyone who's just new here. So she knew that that was a possibility, and I told her that up front when I started working for her, was that it was a possibility that we might be moving to Lafayette. So I think she was taking that into account. She also knew that we were trying to get pregnant, and so obviously people quit when they get pregnant sometimes. I think she was taking that into account, and she just wanted to get all of her money out of me that she could. And from a business standpoint, I understand it, but she played it so stupidly, and the contract was so bad. My dad is a criminal justice major, and he took some classes on lawyery type stuff. He was thinking about going on to become a lawyer, and so I had him go over my contract, and he told me, he was like, you could sign this, but to be honest, I'm not sure it would have been hold up in court. But I was a little bit worried that it would, because I was signing it. It even stated in the contract that during my apprenticeship, she was paying me under the table, which is illegal. Okay, that means that neither of us were paying taxes. She wasn't paying taxes on me, and I wasn't paying taxes on the money that I owed. And so he even told me, he was like, if you wanted to, you could turn her into the better business bureau, and she would get reamed. Like, it would really mess her up. Of course, it would come back on me, and I'd have to pay what I owed for like the money that I made while working for her. But he was like, it's going to be considerably less what you owe versus what she's going to owe. But just the contract she had was just nutty and out there, and I wish I had a copy of it to read to you guys, because it was just like, is this, it was crazy. So he told me the best thing I could do if I really wanted to keep that job was to write up a counter contract, and I did. And I kind of avoided signing her contract for 2 days and didn't really talk to her about it, because I wanted to write up my counter contract, and I wanted my dad to go over it and to make sure that everything I had in there was like super legal, to a T. We would put in there that fine, if I quit within the 5 years, you can, sue me for $1,000, but that the money is gonna decrease every year that I work for you by like $100 or $200. So that way, if I quit, a day before the end of my contract, she couldn't sue me for $1,000. I might owe her like $50, something like that. We also put in there that if she fired me during that time, she would owe me $1,000, because there was nothing in there for security for my job. And I brought that up to her, and she was like, well, of course, I don't see where I would ever fire you, and if I do fire you, I won't, you won't owe me anything if I fire you. But she never mentioned anything about job security for me. It was all protecting her. And so we wrote up a new contract, and the day that I was going to talk to her about my contract, right after our last customer left, and I feel like this is probably figured out by now, but I should come out here and say, this is like a mom and pop shop, personally owned business, not a chain corporation. It was all her and her husband. So our last client leaves. I'm really super nervous. I've never had to do this kind of a thing before and debate a contract with somebody. And so I was super nervous. And the last customer leaves, she literally flipped out on me, yelling at me, cussing at me about how I've avoided her contract, blah, blah, like went off on me, so unprofessional. Like, I was almost in tears the way she was just freaking out on me like that. And so she was like, I don't know if I can continue training you. And keep in mind, I had like a week left of my training. I was pretty much done being trained. Also keep in mind that during this period, I should mention, is that not only did I work really hard on my own dogs, but I would also, her husband, who was a meth addict, there were so many problems with this whole scenario. He was trying to be in like recovery or remission or whatever, but he would have to go to like a methadone clinic in the morning, and he was supposed to be our dog washer. And when I very, very, very first started, they had a dog washer who quit. And he took over being the dog washer, but he wouldn't show up until like 10, 11 in the morning, and we would be there by 8. And so like I would typically have all of my dogs washed and all of her dogs washed and working on blow drying them by the time he'd walk in the door. And she'd even told me at one point, she's like, keep an eye on my husband if he's ever in here and you're in here, because sometimes he steals money out of the cash register and like stuff like that. That stuff was going on, but I was trying to make myself as, beneficial as possible. That's really something that you can do when you get a job, is try to make yourself, a very beneficial employee, somebody that they don't want to lose. Hi, Molly. She's coming to say hi. Say hi, Puppos. Hi, Puppos. So, I don't remember the exact term, but, make yourself as beneficial to the company as possible, somebody that they don't want to lose. And so I was there on time every day. I washed nearly all of the dogs. I did all of my dogs. I took any extra dogs. I just walked in. I did all that I could. I would stay after and help clean up the shop and pretty much clean up the entire shop while she was doing her financial part of things and cashing everything out. And I would be vacuuming, and I would be bleaching the grooming tables, like the bleach cleaner or Lysol bleach cleaner. It's not actual bleach, but it's kind of made with the same thing. And just doing all the cleanup work, pulling out the cages and sweeping behind the cages, and just everything that has to do with cleanup. And her husband, like, sometimes he would do stuff, sometimes he would just leave. You never really knew what was going to go on with him. So that was happening. But just her completely flipping out on me like that, like when it came down to the contract, just flipped out. And so I gathered all my stuff up because I had no intentions of coming back after she treated me like that. And of course, during that time period of working for her, she talked about, how she'd trained so many people and none of them ever stayed with her and she didn't know why. in that, you know, all of her apprentices that she's had, they all work and make good money, but, you know, blah, 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 whatever. They all still groom. So, yeah, I left. And then over the weekend, she got a hold of me, and she was like, I still really want you to work with me, but I think I can only have you here on the weekends. She was also training her daughter to groom with her as well, which, you know, fine, like, I don't care, but her daughter was in high school, and so she could only groom on the weekends also. And I told her, I was like, you know, I have to go back to my old job. I can't afford to only work weekends. And she's like, I understand. So that was that. I quit. I was not going to go back to her because the way she treated me, that was so unprofessional. Instead of saying, hey, we need to talk about the contract, she just like flipped out on me. Just like, oh my God, it was awful. So I went like 2 weeks without a job. And then I seen where someone was posting things on Facebook, a local Facebook garage sale site, saying dog groomers needed, and it was in Marion, which is about a 30 to 45 minute drive from where I live. So I went in there and I applied, and they hired me. They hired me as an apprentice. They said that I was not up to the quality of their standards and that I'd have to complete a 30-day apprenticeship. Fine, whatever. You know, I've already gone like 60 days in my last apprenticeship, but if you think I need an extra 30, fine. And to be honest, I don't blame him, because the quality of his work far surpassed the quality of my previous boss's work. Like, she was a good groomer, but oh my goodness, he was, I'm so glad I got to work for him. Like, the level of skill this guy has, oh my God, he was so good. And he really, I got aggravated sometimes because like the quality of work I was putting out, because I was doing like 6+ dogs a day at the last shop, and she was happy with it. Like, she was hardly like instructing me anymore, and she was happy with it, and all the clients seemed happy with it, and I was like, oh, I'm doing a great job. And then I go to him, he's pretty much like, everything you're doing is complete shit. And the quality of work that he's putting out was like way higher, which he lives in a poorer town, so he was charging less money, and I didn't make shit working with him. Like, I made nothing. With her, at least I made half. With him, I made nothing. But I figured, you know, 30 days, work with him, they don't have a job, sounds great. Well, they ran a pet store, and they had a dog washer, and I loved her. Like, I have nothing bad to say about her. She was such a hard worker, but her other part of her job was to also to muck out the cages when she came in. And part of this place, like, this guy's wife was super affiliated with the Humane Society for that town. And so there was a lot of dogs who actually lived in the grooming salon, which was not a very big space. For those of you who watch my vlogs, the entire grooming salon was probably about as big as my dining room. It was not a big space. And there was a handful of dogs who just lived in the grooming salon. They were not adoptable dogs. They were super sweet, but they were from puppy mills. The two females were like super shy, and the male had hip dysplasia, and it was so creepy the first time I seen it. This little Pomeranian's legs would like literally rotate backwards. Like, it was gross. Sweetest dog ever, but he couldn't pee normally. He would just kind of wet wherever he was pretty much laying and drag himself around by his front feet, and it was just weird and bad. To further that, all the dogs being in such a tight confirmed space, including when people's dogs came in to get groomed, which got put in cages, there was just a lot of noise, so a lot of dogs would get kind of stressed out, and there'd be a lot of barking, and of course you've got the pound puppies running around all over the floor, and you're trying not to step on them, so it kind of made for like a hectic workspace. But back to the dog washer. She wouldn't come back to wash dogs until probably 10-ish, sometimes 11, depending on how long it took her to clean all of the cages in the pet store. And you know, like, I'm not knocking her, like, she's doing her job, she's doing what she's supposed to. But like, I'm coming in at 8 o'clock. I don't want to sit around, or no, that job started at 9, so she wouldn't come in until like 11:30. The other job started at 8. So I didn't want to sit around for like 2 hours and just check dogs in and do nothing, because that's how you get backed up. So I started washing dogs, and by the time she would get back to the grooming salon, I would have almost all of the dogs washed. And so the groomer, he would take in 14 to 16 dogs a day, and of course that's not including the dogs who just come in for nail clippings and just come in for bath and blow dry. That's full-on grooms. Of course there was him and I working back there, and so we split it, so that's like 7 dogs a person. But he never thought my quality was all the way up there, so It wasn't until the very end of my apprenticeship that I officially started grooming dogs the way he wanted, and he had me doing like 4 dogs a day total groom that he didn't touch. Everything else I would do and thought they were done, and then he'd come over and he'd be nitpicking, and this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Honestly, things that like customers aren't going to notice, like the tiniest little things, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, it's a thorough groom and it's really done good. It was just frustrating. Anyways, I would pretty much have all the dogs bathed. I did nail clippings in the bathtub because a lot of times dogs who don't like having the nails clipped will be so thrown off by having it done in the bathtub that they won't even realize you're doing it, and you can get them done. I've had a lot of dogs who want to get aggressive and try to bite you, or like they'll literally take a crap on the table when you're trying to groom their feet, or they try to lay down and tuck their feet in because they don't want to have their nails clipped. So a lot of times I'll just do it in the bath. They don't even realize it's happening until it's done. Makes things faster. So that was one thing that made me someone who was valuable, you would think. And they even made comments about how much faster they were getting done because I was getting everything washed and nails clipped. And they were like, oh, before you, we didn't get out of here until 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. Now we're getting here at about 5, 5:30. Like, you're welcome. I'm cutting time off. So I thought, you know, great. I'm becoming an asset to the company. I'm shaving time off. They're getting out of here sooner. And dog grooming is one of those things where, like, you don't necessarily have set hours. It's kind of like a fluctuating thing. At least in the grooming salons that I worked in, dogs come in at a certain time. You leave when your dogs are done. That's kind of how that works. So my first grooming salon, it was all about fast, fast, fast. Get them done, get them out, get them done, get them out, which is why the quality wasn't as high. The new salon, this guy was all about quality. Take your time. Like some dogs, on my first salon, she was like 3 hours max for a dog, in and out in 3 hours. That was a bath, that was a blow dry, that was everything done in 3 hours. If you're gonna take longer, it happens, but try not to make it take longer than 3. With him, some dogs would be there from like the time they walked in the door until the time they walked out because they might be old, they might get stressed out, and he'd be like, just put them away and give them a break. Move on to the next song. Put them away and give them a break, which isn't a bad way to do things. I think it's great for the animal, especially if they just need a break, whereas the other lady was like, push them, push them, push them, push them, push them, get them done, just make them stand there, make them do it, which is stressful on an animal, especially older ones. So he was a little more lax on the timing and didn't care if we were there until 6 or 8 at night. So anyways, I worked really hard for him for the full 30 days. And then I asked him, I was like, am I about done with my apprenticeship? And he was like, well, I think you needed to do another 30. I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll do another 30. So I ended up doing a 60-day apprenticeship with him. And like I said, by the end of that, he was starting to let me do like 4 dogs a day. He would, always check my dogs, but it was getting to where I had like 4 a day that he didn't need to touch. Which really, with the amount of time he had me working on these dogs, I was only able to really do a full 4. Like, I was still washing everybody's dogs. I was still doing pretty much all of the nail clippings, but I was only fully grooming 4 because he just was so nitpicky. I couldn't move past that. So, in the 60 days rolls around, and I come to him, and I'm like, hey, I've been your apprentice for 60 days now. You're letting me do dogs. I know you want me doing 6 a day, but I'm doing 4. Can I at least get paid for the 4 that I'm doing, right? That seems fair, and I've been doing it for a couple of weeks of doing the 4 a day. And he literally tells me, I can't afford to pay you. I can't afford to pay you. What? Oh my gosh. Again, I love the training I got from him. He was so good. I still get compliments on my dogs that I do groom. I will definitely say that the quality that I'm able to produce on my dogs is higher than the quality that I think my previous manager is able to do. But to work for 60 days under the impression that at the end of that, I would get a job out of it, and him letting me think that, and that was the agreement. Granted, there was no contract. I was never an official employee. I was an unpaid apprentice. And of course, they'd even, small talk and say, oh, when we finally hire you on, and this is how much you'll be making per dog, and yes, you will be an employee, you will be hourly, you will be insured, you'll be under our insurance, for business insurance, so you don't have to go get your own. Yeah, we don't agree with the idea of having people pay booth rent. I don't think that's good business, because of course I talked to them about my last place and how she kind of flipped out on me in the contract. I, at the time, still had the contract, so I let him read it. And, we talked about that stuff. And for him to flat out tell me he couldn't afford to pay me. And towards the end of this, they were talking quite a bit about financial issues they were having with the pet store. He'd even told me, you know, oh, my wife is bringing home too many pound puppies, like we can't afford all of this. I remember at one point it was like kitten season and people were bringing in kittens left and right, and a lot of them needed medical care. They didn't look very healthy. Somebody even brought in an alligator to the pet store and told him, you know, oh, he's getting too big for us and we don't know how to take care of him. He's been living off of macaroni and Vienna sausages. This alligator was eating macaroni noodles and Vienna sausages. And it was a pretty good sized gator. And so, of course, he took it in. They never said no to any animals that showed up. And so he, you know, built a whole exhibit for it, and he put out this ad for people to come in and feed Darth Gator. That's what they called him, was Darth Gator. And you can bring in fish to feed Darth Gator. And I mean, they were good people. They really were. I don't want to say that they weren't good people. They were really good people. And they were very hard workers. They really cared about their pet shop. They really cared about all of the animals. But I got kind of screwed over. I mean, they worked me for 60 days under the impression that I was going to get a job afterwards, for them to say, I can't afford to pay you. Like, nothing like, you're not good enough quality, we're going to fire you, we're going to let you go, we don't want to hire you. Nothing like that. It was just a straight up, I can't afford to pay you. And the cherry on top of that was, do you want to finish grooming the rest of your dogs for the day? And of course I said yes, because I truly do love grooming. I love it. It is something that I am passionate about. I truly enjoy dog grooming. But, so I stuck around the rest of the day and I finished up my dogs. But, yeah, that's, you know, both of those stories. That's why I will never work for another, I shouldn't say never, but I have no intentions of ever working for another mom and pop grooming salon ever again. I just feel like they're not always doing good business practices, to be honest with you. And they did me dirty on both. I worked hard. I am a hard worker. Like I said, I always showed up on time, took care of all of my responsibilities, tried to go above and beyond, and I just got screwed over. So that's why I no longer work at a grooming salon. I do have, like I said, dogs that come here that were my clients when I started working at grooming salons, and they're mostly friends that came to me when I started training, and they just keep bringing their dogs to me. I do it as a fun hobby on the side to make a little extra cash. I'm not making much. I charge like $20 a dog, which is not much compared to what you could be paying in other stores. But that's why I don't work in the grooming salon anymore, and I have no intentions of going back to another mom and pop shop. I think the only way I would go back to a grooming salon is if I was to work for like a corporation, Petco, PetSmart, something like that. I would be more open to working for. I did apply to one of those. I didn't end up getting the job because they already had 2 people going through the apprenticeship program. And they said that because I didn't have a certificate of completion from either of my apprenticeships, like if I had worked a full year grooming on my own, they could have just hired me in as a groomer, but because I didn't have either of those, that they would have to hire me in as an apprentice, and I would have to go through the apprenticeship, but at least at the end of theirs, I would get a certificate of completion, which is not something I got at my other 2, which I did complete both apprenticeships. Yeah, they didn't hire me because they needed somebody who could just start immediately as a groomer. And even though, like, the lady really wanted me, she really fought for me with the upper management, but the upper management was like, no, this is how we do things, which I can respect. I wish that I'd work for salons that had, you know, a strict code of conduct, and this is how we do things, and not just, oh, we're gonna do it this way today, and tomorrow we might do it differently, and just wishy-washy. And that's just kind of what I got with the mom and pop shops. Was you don't really know how things are gonna go. They change up pretty quickly. So anyways, I know this has been a super long story time, but I still hope you enjoyed. If you've ever been a groomer, worked in a grooming salon, wanted to be a groomer, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to talk to you guys about all of this. Otherwise, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.